this is Karen from Malcolm, your Agile Evangelist. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a continuation of our last series, which was titled A Day in the Life of a Scrum Master. So today I will be walking you through a sprint in the life of a Scrum Master. So if you still haven't subscribed to this channel, if this is your first time here, please kindly go ahead, turn on that subscription button, turn on the notification bell so that you will stay connected and you will not miss out on any important information I will be bringing to you. Also like, share with your friends so that we all can continue to learn and grow as this one big happy Agile family. See, this platform is going to be very unique. What I mean is the kind of information I will be sharing with you, or I intend to share with you here, is that kind of information that, trust me, you will hardly get it from anywhere else. Not every coach or Agile leader will be very willing to be very transparent with you. That is why I am here. That's the kind of information that I plan to bring to you based on my experience, based on the technicality of my journey. Those are kind of information that I will be sharing with you here. I have really struggled a lot to get to where I am today, so that is the very reason why I started this platform in the first place, because I thought, okay, I am going through all this struggle. There should be so many other people who would eventually go through this kind of struggle. So that's why I started this platform, so that I can use my experience, my lessons learned, and share with you so that you will be able to jump over some of the potholes that maybe I fell into, I have learned from, and things like that. That's why I am here for you. So if you still have not connected, you need to go ahead and click that subscription button, turn on the notification bell, and follow up with me. Again, that's not just the only reason why I started this platform. One other reason is that I want to be able to keep the learning alive. Sharing for me is a way of keeping the learning alive. So if you still have not connected, go ahead and connect. One other thing, if you are interested in more than just what I am sharing on this platform, if you want to go deeper, like one-on-one mentoring coaching, I am at your service. You can go ahead and reach out to me directly through my LinkedIn profile or my email, and we can come up with an action plan to close your gaps. That way you can become successful as a Scrum Master. Thank you. So let us go into our agenda for today. What does a sprint in the life of a Scrum Master looks like? So I'm not going to go right all the way back from the very first day of the sprint. So if you missed that video, go back to my previous video, or you can click on the link above to watch the previous video to have an understanding of a day in the life of a Scrum Master. Now, considering that we are done with the day one of the sprint, now every morning for the remaining 9 days of the sprint, we will have our daily stand-up for 15 minutes every morning. And again, I am the facilitator for all the stand-ups. I already explained to you exactly what I do and the kind of things I focused on during the stand-up meeting. We have these meetings every day for 9 days for the rest of the sprint. Now, on the last day of the sprint, is considered as the most important day for me as a Scrum Master. And the reason why it's most important is because the critical required Scrum events, 3 of the critical Scrum required events happens on that day. That is the stand-up, which is a regular thing. We have the sprint review that also happens on that day. And we have the sprint retrospective that also happens on that day. So on the last day of the sprint, immediately after we are done with our stand-up, I quickly go back to continue planning my sprint review that is supposed to come up at 1 o'clock on the last day of the sprint. So I finish the planning. I also go ahead and quickly continue planning for the retrospective. So mind you, during the week, I am already putting my stuff together. Like I explained in my previous video, I am putting my content together, my materials together, all important points that I've observed during the sprints. I have captured them all already. So the last day of the sprints is just like a final touch to me. So now my goal as a Scrum Master is to make sure that these meetings happen. And not just happening, I am also ensuring that the stakeholders are leveraging the value of these meetings. So I do my best, I go above and beyond to make sure that we don't just carry out these meetings as tradition or as culture. I am making sure that everyone understands the purpose for these meetings and they are leveraging these meetings to add value to the business, to the customers, and to the team as well. So that is my focus during these meetings. So let us start with the sprint review. At 1 o'clock on the last day of the sprint, a sprint review starts. So what is my role as a Scrum Master during the sprint review? During the sprint review, I have 3 areas of focus. I am facilitating the meeting, I am demonstrating our sprint metrics, and lastly, I am observing to capture irregularities in terms of behavior towards Scrum values. So those are my 3 areas of focus. Now, the meeting starts at 1 o'clock. I start with, right before the meeting starts, I have this attitude of always making sure that everyone is in sync of what's going on. No one is left behind. So I always quickly reshare the agenda of the meeting so that every team member has the same understanding of who is doing what during the sprint review. Even stakeholders already know what to expect, because I make sure that that communication is really flowing. Everyone is on the same page with expectation. Now, during the sprint review meeting, I facilitate the meeting, but not just facilitating, I also demo our metrics. So I'll start by announcing the agenda, walk everyone through the agenda so that everyone knows what's coming, and then I go ahead and facilitate the meeting. I also go ahead and demonstrate our sprint metrics, and while I am doing that, I also answer questions that might come up during the demonstration of the sprint metrics. Once I am done demonstrating our sprint metrics, I continue the facilitation of the meeting, and once we are done with demoing and discussing next steps and things like that, the very next thing we do is we close and then we jump into our retrospective. Again, during the retrospective meeting, I am still the facilitator of this meeting, but during the retrospective, I have 3 areas of focus. I am facilitating the meeting, I am observing behavior, I am observing everything that's going on. During my observation of everything that's going on, I am making sure that the meeting stays positive. The meeting stays constructive, so that it doesn't become a ground for complaining, finger pointing, and things like that. No, my focus is to make sure that everyone stays positive while we conduct our retrospective meeting. My third point is that I am making sure that at the end of the meeting, we at least have 1 or 2 action items for improvement. Because if at the end of the meeting we don't have any action item for improvement, then the meeting was pointless. Again, that is the value that I make sure that we derive from this meeting. That's the third point of focus for me. And then lastly, I make sure that at the end of the meeting, we have identified action item owners. That is, who will be responsible for carrying out these action items for improvement, so that we are actually making sure that we are executing these action items for improvement that we've identified. So those are my 3 points of focus during our retrospective. So during the retrospective, what exactly do we do? So I am guiding the team to answer these 4 important questions. Number 1, what did we do good? What did you really enjoy about the sprint? So how did the sprint go positively? So I have different games that I usually come up with, and I really like to switch. This is very interesting. This is always very interesting for me. It is one of the most enjoyable times in my sprint, so that's when I become really creative. I come up with so many different ideas, fun ideas, to help my team, bring out their best, speak up. I really push them to speak up through these different games and different ideas. So the first thing that we address is the positive aspect of our sprints. Secondly, areas of improvement. Like the second question I would answer is, what could we have done better? That's the second thing we are discussing. And then I'll continue to encourage them to speak up, and we gather all these points. And then the very last thing that we are discussing is, what do we want to stop doing? That's something negative that we never want to see it happen again. And then the last point is regarding technology and tools and techniques. So any ideas for tools and technique that we can incorporate into our already existing tools and process that will help us move forward. So those are my 3 areas of focus with my team. Immediately after the meeting is over, it is almost the end of the last day of our sprint. So what I do now, that last day, is I quickly summarize everything that we've captured. Yes, we have a shared platform that everyone can always jump into, like bring themselves up to speed with what's going on. But I always like to summarize everything we've discussed and still share it with the team through email, so that we all can always stay on the same page, especially when it comes to the action items to be completed. And then I am done with my Scrum activities for that last day of the sprint. I quickly go ahead and summarize my report for the day and share with my leadership team. And that's it for the required Scrum events. There are also 2 very important events that we've incorporated into our Scrum process because we realize that it works great for us. So these other 2 events are, number 1, the backlog management and organization meeting, which I already discussed in my previous video. Please, if you missed the video again, go back and look for that video and watch it. So this meeting is like a meeting I usually have with the PO every Wednesday of the week, so that we can set the backlog ready for the second event I am about to mention now, which is this backlog refinement meeting. So on this Wednesday, I meet with the PO. We set the backlog ready for the backlog refinement meeting. Now, what happens during the backlog refinement meeting every Thursday? So we have this backlog refinement meeting as a continuous event. It happens every Thursday at 2:00. So every Thursday at 2:00, we meet to conduct this meeting, which we see this meeting as a pre-sprint planning meeting. That is why my team will hardly ever spend more than 2 hours during the sprint planning. And the reason is because we have already proactively planned our sprint during the this backlog refinement meeting. Now, during this backlog refinement meeting, what exactly happens? I am still the facilitator of this backlog refinement meeting. What is the purpose for this backlog refinement meeting? So this backlog refinement meeting helps us prepare towards our sprint planning. During this meeting, that's when, if you listen to my last video, you will hear I really didn't emphasize on story sizing, story breaking down, and estimation, because truly, we really don't carry out all these activities during the sprint planning. We do all these things during backlog refinement meetings. So during this backlog refinement meeting, that is when we are breaking down our stories, we are resizing them, we are estimating them. That is, some people have so many different estimation techniques. For my team, we use story pointing. We are re-estimating them. We are putting all the details, clarifying all the stories. And in this meeting, the PO cannot miss this meeting. The PO can probably miss the planning because during the planning, we are just balancing things up. But during this refinement meeting, it's critical for the PO to be present. So during this meeting, the PO is there and we are clarifying on stories, getting everything ready and pulling them into the backlog. Yeah, so that is the purpose for the refinement meeting. And why is this refinement meeting important for us? This refinement meeting is important for us because most of the time we will, when we are evaluating the stories during this refinement meeting, we will identify gaps, questions, stories with a lot of question marks. So during this meeting, we identify the action items, the people or the stakeholders who are responsible in answering or providing this information for us. And then we reach out to them to give them enough time. Let's say, for example, we noticed that details or acceptance criteria was lacking on the story. Now we escalate this to the PO. The PO is aware. Now the PO has 1 week, 1 week time to look for this information and provide it for us before the actual sprint planning. You see, so during the day of the sprint planning, the PO has already looked for this information and provided it so that the day of the planning, we are not stuck. We are not wasting time. He is not in the rush to provide maybe inaccurate information and things like that. You see, so the day of the planning now, we are coming to just balance everything up that we've already pre-planned the day of the refinement. So refinement for us is more important, or it's just as important as all these other required Scrum events. Yeah, so that is what we do during the refinement meeting. So in addition to all the 4 mandatory events that we conduct, we also conduct these 2 additional events that I have just mentioned. So that is how my sprints usually unfold. Now, the big question is, what else does a Scrum Master do apart from facilitating the Scrum events and removing impediments during the sprint? I am going to walk you through 5 other roles that I play as a Scrum Master, as an Agile coach during the life of the sprint. Now, number 1, what else do I do? So I already mentioned impediments. I already mentioned facilitating, planning the meetings and things like that. The third thing that I do as a Scrum Master when the sprint is going on is, so as the sprint is going on, based on the need that has been identified during the day, I also serve as a bridge. That is, I serve as a bridge between the team and the organization. That is, often through the PO. That is, if there are any information that the organization is supposed to be aware that has to go through the PO, I'm making sure that I am providing that information to the PO so that the PO can then escalate it to the organization. Also, I also serve as a bridge in a way that, okay, let's say for example, if I realize that leadership or management is getting into the way of the team, like really distracting them from focusing and executing their work, all right, that's a gap. I am making sure that I am connecting with management to understand the root cause of the distraction, and I am coming up with ways to close that gap, either based on what I find. I am coming up with either coaching, workshop sessions, mentoring, teaching to close that gap, just to make sure that everyone is on the same page with what's expected for an organization to succeed with Scrum. That is the whole intention, is to make sure that management and the team is in sync with what's going on at team level and at organizational level. So I am in the middle as establishing cross-functional collaboration between the organization and the team. So that's how I serve as a bridge. The 4th role that I play as the sprint is going on is I serve as a referee. How do I serve as a referee? That is, sometimes conflicts may arise, So in the life of a sprint, when conflicts arrive, what I do is I become the referee. I make sure that I am facilitating the conflict resolution process, especially if there are conflicts that might heavily impact the team. I am making sure that I am facilitating this conflict resolution process to ensure that the parties remain focused on the issue and not the person. That is, they all remain focused on the overall objective, what we are trying to achieve, and not taking it to a personal level, so that at the end of the conflict resolution process, we are coming out with actionable result that will help us move forward. So that is how I serve as a referee. The fifth role that I play in the life of the sprint is I serve as the value conscience. What do I mean by the value conscience? Scrum cannot be successful if the Scrum team does not reflect the values of Scrum. Meaning that during the sprint, I am remaining observant to watch if the team is going against the Scrum values. All right. I have to capture all this kind of anti-patterns and anti-behaviors and look for a perfect opportunity like the retrospective event to bring it up to the team so that we all can discuss around it and come up with a plan to close that gap and bring us back on track with the Scrum values. Now, if it's just an individual going against the Scrum values, what I would normally do is I would set up a one-on-one session with that individual to really understand the root cause of their behavior. Once I am able to understand the root cause of their behavior, and then I'll go ahead to conduct their coaching, mentoring, teaching, just depending on what the result of my investigation tells me. So that is how I serve as a conscience, a value conscience for the team. So as a Scrum Master, it is my role to quickly smell when the team is going against these values. I am supposed to be the first to identify and catch these patterns and quickly bring it up to the team so we all can immediately fix it. Now, the sixth role that I play as a Scrum Master is I am serving as a mentor. So based on the gap that I identify on a particular day during the sprint, I have to, come up with ways to bring the team or the organization up to speed, either, advising them. So when you hear about mentoring, it's all about advising. And again, it's on the team's permission or the stakeholders' permission. You don't just want to come and advise somebody in Scrum. No, again, Scrum is servant leadership style. You don't impose anything. You ask permission or you look for ways to influence them without imposing anything on them. So I also serve as a mentor as the sprint is going on. So I would always look for opportunities, especially if the team is focusing on their work. I can now focus on management at this time. So I'll look for opportunities to talk about Scrum. So I always do that. I always look for perfect opportunities to talk about Scrum. Just, so in the course of discussing with management, especially if it's someone that is has really big influence on the team, which will eventually affect our sprint outcome, I'm always looking for opportunities to engage in conversations, in agile conversations with these stakeholder. So in the process of us conversing, I am identifying these gaps. I am observing and identifying the gaps. And then once I identify the gaps, I look for ways to mentor these leadership personnel or this stakeholder, just to make sure that I am continuously working on improving their knowledge on Agile and Scrum, so that they'll eventually start reflecting it by behaving it and practicing it. Now you see, that's how I also serve the team as a mentor. The last but not the least role that I play in the life of the sprint is I also serve as an observer or a process engineer, or I'll call it a mom to a teenager. That is, if you know how teenagers behave or how you used to behave when you were a teenager, once a child becomes a teenager, the mom cannot just step in at any time to tell them or dictate to them what to do, So at this point, you remain observant and watch them, become independent and watch them do things on their own. But you are watching in case they start going against the standard or best behavior or good behavior, at that time you want to quickly step in and redirect them or bring it up to them so that you both can work it out and figure how to bring that teenager back on track. So it's the same thing with a Scrum team. So as an observer, my role as a Scrum Master is to remain vigilant, to make sure that I am observing the team and ensuring that they are rolling towards the right direction. If I notice any anti-pattern, I should be the first to quickly catch that and bring it up to the team so that we all can discuss and figure a way to close that gap and redirect the ship back on track. So that's my role as an observer. So in summary, that is what my sprint would look like as a Scrum Master. And one thing that I hope you've paid attention to is it really depends on the things that happens on daily basis. It highly depends on my observation. So my activities for every day, aside from the standard sprints required meetings, the rest of every other activity that I conduct during the sprints highly depends on the outcome of my observation. So I always remain really observant to identify gaps and close that gap to make sure that at the end of the day, we are working towards realizing a highly performing, self-managed and self-organizing team that would deliver value to the business, to the customer, and to the team as individuals at the end of the sprint. So that is the overall objective we are trying to achieve with every other activity we are conducting during the life of the sprint. So that's it. Now we will end here today. Please, if you still haven't subscribed, go ahead and click that subscription button, turn on the notification bell so you will never miss out on any content. Share with your friends, tell a friend, and tell a friend to tell a friend. If you are interested in my one-on-one mentoring and coaching services, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can email me directly, and from there we get to understand your gaps and identify the areas where you need help with, come up with an action plan on how to close that gap so that we all can keep rolling in this beautiful agile journey. Thank you so much. In our next video, I hope you all are aware that there is a newer version of the Scrum Guide. I know I've mentioned that in my other videos. So now in November 2020, a newer version of the Scrum Guide was released, which is more lean than the older version. It's just 13 pages, whereas the previous version was 19 pages. So in the next video, I will be helping you, evaluating the new Scrum Guide and clearly summarize the changes or the difference between the old Scrum Guide and the new Scrum Guide, how it has changed. I will clearly bring it out in point form, what all the changes that I have identified from between those two Scrum Guides. I will be bringing that to you in our next session. If you have any other topic that you would like me to talk about, please reach out to me, drop your comment in the comment section below. That's I always make sure I read all the comments. Drop your comment there. I will capture your point there and I will evaluate it, and then I'll talk about it. So again, I'm always encouraging you to help me help you. Help me help you. Thank you so much, friends, and I hope you enjoyed this session. I will see you in our next video. Bye.